Let's go!
You are listening to a podcast of the Geek I Media Network. For all of our shows and more, visit geek-io.net. And to help support the network, head over to patreon.com/geekio.
Hello, gentle listener. While Geek I holds its talent to the highest standards, what follows will likely involve the sort of language usually reserved for sailors on leave. If you're of a delicate disposition, then perhaps you would consider a different podcast.
Queen Mother, Princess, my comfort for your loss.
Thank you, Nadia. It is so good to have you back with us.
Take her to the river province to prepare her for the ceremony.
Yes, General.
Did he freeze? An antelope in headlights.
Are you finished?
This is the Geek I.O. Rant and Review with your hosts, CJ, Rachel, Raul, Gary, Josh, Jared, and everyone's favorite Aussie, Dale Cleveland.
Well, hello, welcome to the Geek I.O. show, episode number 223, our rant and review of Black Panther. I am your host, CJ Fade Wipe into the Rainforest boat.
I'm Raul. I don't know a catchy title, Garza.
I'm Dale. I turned up to the wrong episode, apparently. Campbell.
I'm Rachel. I don't want to be in that corset either.
I'm Carrie, spearing and surfing on a car hood Wilcox.
And I'm Felix. Just kidding. I'm a vegetarian. I mean Josh.
Oh, well done. Oh, man. So, normally, during the top half of the show, we talk production. But once we get through our spiel of doing funny things, it's a Marvel movie. So, yeah. We're just going to talk about the movie today, you guys.
They had a budget. They used it.
Yes.
But can we...
So,
okay, production first time? Or whoa, go ahead.
Well, we'll talk about... This is not a separated thing like it usually is. We will just kind of talk about it all at once.
Okay.
As we usually do anyway.
We'll get there after we talk about the actual, like, getting to the top of the show stuff. Of course, we're talking about Black Panther. It's only available in theaters because it just came out last weekend. T'Challa.
I'm still kicking myself, by the way. I'm never going to live that down.
All right, so bye, everybody. We'll see you next week, and Dale will record a new intro.
All right.
T'Challa, the king of Wakanda, rises to the throne in the isolated technological...
Sorry.
Are you, though?
What? The fuck just happened?
Love you, Gary.
Love you too, Dale.
Wow, he just like... Boom.
I'm going to mute myself now so CJ can get through this trip.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to read the thing here. T'Challa, the king of Wakanda, rises to the throne of an isolated, technological, advanced African nation, but his claim is challenged by a vengeful outsider who is a child-born victim of T'Challa's father's mistake.
Hey, CJ, you want to actually read what's written there and not your own shit?
Nope, I tried it before. I've gotten interrupted now. I'm done. Released last weekend, the 16th of February, 2018. Of course, we have Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, Black Panther. Michael B. Jordan as Eric Killmonger, Black Panther. Lupita Nyong'o as Nakia. Denai Gudia as Okoye. Martin Freeman as Everett K. Ross, with a shout out to
Shout out to Winston Duke for Maku.
Yes, and also, what the hell's his name?
Duke is probably the one that you're talking about, M'Baku.
No, him too. Pretty much
Oh my
everybody.
god.
Angela Bassett as freaking mom, and Forrest Whitaker as
High Priest.
dude who has all of the herb, if you know what I mean.
He's got
Angela
that good
Bassett,
shit.
majestic as fuck.
Yeah, man. Holy crap. There's a lot of trivia for this movie. Holy cow.
No, Holy Panther.
Yeah, Holy Cow is in India.
Oh, here's the most obvious one.
Not do anything right.
Like, trivia-wise, this is a film, I'm stealing this, CJ, about an African superhero released in Black History Month, when African culture is celebrated across not only the U.S., but Canada and the U.K. as well. That is huge.
Yes.
That was planned.
Yeah,
It had better have been.
like, let's just smack it right. Well, it wasn't just in America. It was, we've got 3 different countries that are doing that. It all dropped in the month that we celebrate Black History Month. And there are some fucking brilliant African-American, Black, South African actors and actresses in this movie with such diversity.
We'll get to that here in a couple seconds, though.
It makes me happy.
I would like to hope that it wasn't intentional.
No, it was absolutely intentional. This was one.
Everything Marvel does is intentional.
100% intentional. Yeah, absolutely.
But it was intentional not as
good
a
way.
pandering move, but as a, hey, Black people, here's a movie that celebrates your culture in the month that celebrates your culture.
Yeah.
You're welcome. And also, we're sorry.
First collaboration between Golem and Bilbo since The Hobbit, an unexpected river barrel journey.
Yeah, the token white guys.
Yeah, the token white guys.
Everyone's favorite
And
move
there's
from the movie.
I love their Tolkien scenes too, where they're facing off with each other and just kind of go, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is so reminiscent."
I absolutely just saw Schmeagol against freaking Bilbo in that scene.
Yep.
Right.
Schmeagol, is that the Jewish counterpart?
Yeah, exactly. He has a little yarmulke, eats bagels a lot.
Right.
There is a meme somewhere online that has.
Put out a nice spread for you, and this is how you treat us.
Forgive me the smear!
But no, seriously, there is a meme that's online that they photoshopped in Smeagol and Bilbo, and you kind of go, "Oh my god!"
Great. Wakanda was mentioned as a location in the Shield Monitor and Iron Man 2. The location pinpoints the country as being situated on Lake Turkana on the border of Kenya and Ethiopia. This region in real life is special for holding great mineral deposits, properties similar to Wakanda. The filmmakers created a unique culture for each of the Wakandan tribes to get a sense of the country being a mix of different tribes. The border tribe was inspired by Lesotho architecture language and uses a motif of blue and wood. The river tribe uses a motif of green and shells. The merchant tribe was inspired by Nigerian architecture and language, and the golden tribe uses a continental symbol for the sun found throughout Africa. The Black Panther and royal palaces uses a motif of black and purple. This is a dumb one. This is the second solo movie for a character introduced in Captain America: Civil War. The other was Spider-Man: Dale Had It All Wrong. 2000.
That's something
Dale
that
had it all wrong. 2017. It's kind of redundant after shocking intro I've had.
So here's another interesting little tidbit about the Black Panther in general. When Jack Kirby was told to put more white people in the original comic, the next issue had Black Panther fighting.
That's disproven. The Black Panther fighting the Klan was actually started pre-Jack Kirby coming back to Marvel from DC. Jack Kirby finished it in a glorious way, but it was not. That was not created by that storyline. Was not created by Jack Kirby.
Sad. Still fun though.
It is fun.
More white people in. Okay, fighting the Nazis.
He was fully in on it though. Like I forget the artist and writer of it between Kirby's entrance and exit from Marvel. But yeah, it was more so focusing on, because at the time that was written, the Black Panther movement had already started. So it was more so of a, hey, instead of fighting back against this, we're just going to embrace it.
Makes sense. Tip of the hat regardless.
Yeah, exactly. While technically untrue with the wanting more white people in it, so they threw in the Klan, it's still, the roots are, the sentiment is there. Yeah, that's a common misconception that got thrown around a lot since it's been around. And like I said, the sentiment is there that this was created in that sense, but it was not that, sadly. Kirby was a pretty staunch, like, equal rights activist on his own, so, you know, it definitely sounds like something he would fucking do. So, yeah, there are...
I have to do Shuri.
I'm definitely not...
Is this Wakanda?
What? Wrong.
Hey, you might want to do that.
No, because that was our opening one.
Was it? Was it? Assuming that intro is still going to be there, is it? That's the person who edits this show. Is it going to be there?
Yes, Dale, it is, and I'm going to put this in here so you can actually...
Hey, there's a highlighted one. I'm going to read it. Let's see if you can find it in the reading. Did he freeze?
Like an antelope in headlights.
Oh, we're done.
Are you done?
Now you can have it, Raoul.
Is this Wakanda?
No, it's Kansas.
Wakanda will no longer watch from the shadows. We cannot. We must not. We will work to be an example of how we, as brothers and sisters of this earth, should treat each other. Now, more than ever, the illusions of division threaten our very existence. We all know the truth. More connects us than separates us. But in times of crisis, the wise build bridges, while the foolish build barriers. We must find a way to look after one another as if we were one single tribe.
Can we just have a moment of appreciation for that subtle Trump slam?
Yep.
Oh,
Subtle?
yes.
Subtle? I think this movie was subtle about...
You didn't say walls specifically.
I don't think this movie was subtle about slamming the current political environment. Just heads up.
No, it was not.
It was about slamming.
You telling me that the king of a third world country runs around in a bulletproof catsuit?
Why don't you ask him yourself? He's right outside at this very moment.
You know what? This sounds like a great idea. See you later.
To be fair, Dale, we are Americans. We have a different definition of subtlety from the rest of the world.
Varying degrees of subtlety.
So this is a Ryan Coogler film. He wrote and directed. He did Creed. He did Fruitvale Station, also starring Michael B. Jordan. He is a great...
Also based in Oakland, California, by the way.
Yeah, he was born and raised in Oakland, California. So he was one of those ones that swore that he was not going to deal with, the because I remember having after Fruitvale Station came out, he obviously did a lot of press junkets on this one. He's like, yeah, I fought my ass off to be able to get out of what was considered just the same routine over and over and over again to break the cycle. And granted, two of the most popular between Rocky and the Creed series and this.
Oh boy, this movie was it was so powerful on so many levels.
Yeah, it is such a strong movie. I mean, Dale, you and I kind of nitpick and go over the production side of things. Just give that like 5 minutes. I've seen the movie twice now. Dale, could you see anything? Because I didn't see a whole lot of any issues on the production side of things.
I definitely didn't. I definitely couldn't see much.
I tried. The second time, I'm going to go through and I'm going to try and find. Like, I knew there wasn't going to be a lot because it's a Marvel movie.
There was one problem I had with the sound. Now, I don't know if this is just a problem in the movie theater, or if it is a problem with the movie, or if it's an edit thing, like a different country, different edit kind of thing. But there was a random, I think it was in the car chase scene, on what clearly looked like to be the Golden Gate
Where
Bridge.
the sound has that it's like a skip glitch kind of thing.
Yeah, it was like someone
heard the voice, it fades out for a second, it pops back in.
Well, there was that. Oh, okay, now I have two problems.
That might have been the radio that they were using.
Maybe, but there was a
random...
random...
when the radio gets put on in the car.
No, that wasn't it.
It's like, this isn't a funeral or something like that.
Oh, there was that bit. That was fine to me, because, you know, sometimes that takes a second to catch up. But there was a bit on the bridge where it randomly sounded like a censorship beep in the middle of nowhere.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
when the music was playing. Now, I think the only explanation I could put to it was that the song that they were using, because talk about the soundtrack in a minute, but there was a bit in the soundtrack where I think part of the song said the N-word. And I think that they just did a censorship beep. What was that?
A hard censor on it, yeah.
A very hard censor. And
this is a Kendrick Lamar-based soundtrack. And while I'm not a huge... And like you said, we'll talk about that in a second. It would not surprise me that one of his songs had the N-bomb in it, so...
Or just, and not to be discriminatory, but just to be more descriptive, I guess.
Well, no, I mean that's Kendrick Lamar's music. Like, that is what he does.
Right. And yes, he toned it down a lot in this soundtrack for what his other projects.
But I think they used one of his licensed songs maybe in the second cut instead of like an actual song for the movie itself, and that may have been what was causing that.
But it definitely sounded like a censorship beat. It was very brief, but it took me out of it a little bit in that scene. It's like, did I hear that? It was over everything. So, like, all of the background noise, all of the car sounds, and, like, all of the pow-pows, like, stopped. And there was this random, like, beep for, like, a second. The video was fine. Beep! Beep! You put your beep in the middle of my movie. How dare you?
It's like kind of like a car horn or something? Because I know, like, if they're going to do that for America... And let's be honest, America, they definitely would have censored the N-word for a PG-13 movie. They would do, like, a radio edit of the song where just the audio track is muted for that song, right? Like, it's not beeped over, something's actually taken out. And I don't know why that would have been changed for an international
release. It's a very minor detail. Like, it is, like, that big, but it's definitely noticeable to have it skip. I did like the fact that, like, everything flowed through that and it was just that little bit that was beeped out. But if I think it was a radio edit of that song, it would have been silenced, not beeped. So I think it was something that was picked up very late in the process, like in a very, very last minute watching, like once the final...
Oh shit, we forgot that word.
Doesn't Australia have some different censor?
Oh yeah, they do.
Oh, we are very tough out here. Like, R is not a thing, for starters. Which, that is another conversation that we could have. I didn't know if we had it on the Deadpool one, but we had to dumb it down to MA15 plus, which is basically 15 years and older, as opposed to R being 18, 17?
17.
Oh, 18, 17, or parents taking their 7-year-old kids to a superhero movie.
Which, by the way, why? But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But that.
So, all right, real quick, I want to touch on the music.
Sure.
I am not a Kendrick Lamar fan. I'm not. That's not my kind of music. But it was rad as hell in this movie.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it was so good.
The soundtrack really was something else in this one.
It really was. Like, it was just, and of course the score is fantastic as always. But like,
Yeah. But all the little.
Oh, go ahead.
I was saying, like, all the touches of traditional African music that permeated that score were so good.
Can we talk about the brilliance that is Killmonger's theme? Oh my God! Just the purest combination of African tribal music and smashing into modern hip hop was insane. It was blowing my fucking mind. Like, it was amazing listening to Killmonger's theme because that is Killmonger. That is his character, and you could not have created a more perfect theme for this character.
I think the score symbolized a lot of what African music is today. And I know that sounds like a white person saying that, but I went over to the Pacific Islands, and they have very similar styles of music. And yes, that was in 2012, but that progression, of course, naturally happens throughout. And, of course, the soundtrack has to be on the opposite, not necessarily the opposite side, but it has to be more mainstream for it to be marketed.
Yeah.
Did you notice that there was a good blend of, like, your exposition part and of the action?
Yeah, this movie was expertly paced.
It's a Marvel movie, but then it's not a Marvel movie because it's not action every 10 minutes.
Yeah, like, you actually get story. And can we talk about the cinematography?
Oh my God, the
Gorgeous.
Sweeping shots, like, held perfectly, like, staged absolute fantastically. Like, the entire thing can be summed up strictly if you want a scenario of how, like, this movie is paced and how this movie is shot. Just look at the Korea scene.
Oh, the Korea scenes are great.
That Korea scene that encapsulates the 1,000% way that this movie is just how great it is.
Can we talk about the speaking of Korea, which is what I'm now dubbing it? The speaking Korea.
The speakeasy in Korea. Yes,
that was pretty great. I was actually about to bring up, Carrie and I were watching this like little mini documentary / behind the scene things about that the other night. Was the director?
It was the director.
Talking about how he had a 3D render of the entire speakeasy printed out and little action figures of the characters.
Oh my God, that's
to figure out everything that he wanted to do with the scene because it was all filmed simultaneously.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because that scene, the action scene, all single shot. That blew my mind.
And it's all real.
Yeah,
like they added like the spark effect from the spear.
That.
Yeah, but like when T'Challa kicks the guy into the bar, he's actually pulled back on a wire. When they throw the guy over the balcony, he actually takes that ball onto a pad.
Yeah, having Okoye be...
When Nakia is shooting up onto the balcony and it pans up to Okoye's awesome-ass spear fighting, that is a camera on a wire flying up to the second story and being picked up from someone by behind it.
Michonne's a badass, by the way.
Yeah.
She's striking bald, too. Like, it was... Oh, my God.
Also, there was a really cool commentary in that video about, and it just shows the attention to detail that went into this entire movie, right? We have Okoye the traditionalist wearing long flowing robes and griping about her wig. We have Nakia, the innovator, the progressivist, wearing a 3D printed dress.
Yes.
And Okoye, Nakia, and T'Challa together are wearing the colors of the Pan-African flag. And nobody else in that scene is wearing red or green.
Huh.
Meanwhile, Ulysses S. Claw is wearing blue, which is symbolic of British colonialism.
Yes.
Because what did the British sailors wear? Blue.
And Claw seemed like he's an insane... Like, he was just having a blast that entire movie.
The two villains in this are, yes, two drastically different villains, but I fucking love them. Claw is one of the most fun villains that they have ever had. Like,
not to mention one of their best reimagined Marvel villains.
Yes, most of the villains they tend to stay pretty close to the chest too. But
Claw, they did not.
No, because I really wanted to see him show up in his ridiculous ass red and purple bullshit thing that he wears in the
with his satellite dish hand.
Yes, I wanted to see that once and just him be like, "No, this is fucking."
And I think he had a tuning fork on the head. I'm not sure.
No, that was Black Bolt. You're thinking of Black Bolt and them.
Black Bolt, yeah. But yeah, Claw, the master of sound, ound.
It's exactly like I wanted it just to call out to that. Just feel like
I'm so glad we didn't though, because there is so much nuance that went into this movie, and it really lets the standout elements shine the way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Here's a nice little thing that I didn't catch and actually just saw pointed out by a friend. The final climactic battle between Killmonger and T'Challa.
Hmm.
It's fought on an underground railroad.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I figured that's what that was.
Oh.
Get that from
Damn.
About that.
So
You're welcome.
The antithesis of Claw being this over-the-top, fun, ridiculous villain, you have the best Marvel villain, in my opinion, in Killmonger. He is relatable. You don't want to hate him. You understand his cause. You understand what he is fighting for. It is not just to take over the world. It is to avenge his family, right the wrongs that were done to him by, leaving him a fucking orphan and his uncle flying off in his Bugatti spaceship.
Right.
Like, if you cannot think of a better catalyst for a villain and have it well written, as well written and well performed as Michael B. Jordan does.
Yeah, he wasn't just a nameless villain that just came out and like, oh, we defeat him, it's the end.
He wasn't evil for the sake of evil.
Yeah, like he wasn't the freaking like the army that came out in Avengers. They're like, oh, these guys are evil, we kill them. No repercussions. But I mean, whatchamacallit, T'Challa actually felt I'm losing a cousin, I'm losing family.
Yeah.
Like he was saddened that he couldn't convince him that there was another way.
And he's very three-dimensional. Like, a lot of villains don't have that much personality to them.
Especially comic book villain. Like when we had Charles on the other day, and he talks about them being characterizations rather than characters. Every single person in Black Panther who was not a background NPC was a character.
Yes. And like I had a similar idea. I had a similar like about Killmonger with Zemo. Like, it is a character as Zemo from Civil War. For those who are watching this and don't understand the Marvel universe, I'm sorry.
Go back and re-listen to our episode of Captain America: Civil War.
Zemo was another very well done character with good reason to be a villain. Like, you killed my entire country and did not properly save these people, especially my family. Oh yeah, guess whose name was on that missile?
Surprise.
Dark.
Fuck you, Dennis.
Yeah, it's even hard to say that Killmonger was a villain because he was an extremist. He was doing what he felt was right and needed, and going to whatever means necessary to rectify the wrong.
Yeah. And I mean sadly, when you go over that line too far, I mean, that's when you become an active villain. That is when you become a person that does kind of need to be taken down, because as seen, he's a very dangerous man.
Yeah.
In great ways. Like, his fantastic. Like, you had an entire lifetime of a story with this villain too. You had, from his childhood, you had through exposition the fact that he has went through and has killed all of these people only to get revenge on T'Chaka and T'Challa.
A lot of people too.
Yeah, entire bodies worth of people. That would have sucked for being in makeup that long.
What was great about this was that it's a Marvel movie, but then it's not a Marvel movie at the same time. It doesn't follow their.
That's what they've been doing. Getting away from those lately. Like,
yeah, they've been trying to get away. It's an amazing solo movie.
What has been considered a Marvel movie pretty much stopped with Avengers 2 and Thor: The Dark World, because they realized that those weren't well done. We needed to do something different. That's when you start getting things like Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Thor: Ragnarok, and
Spider-Man: Homecoming.
And this. Dale, whether you like it or not, it was not a proper superhero.
It was not a typical Marvel movie, I'll give you that.
So they realized that they were starting to become paint by the numbers, and they stopped doing that. And I cannot be more thankful for that, because as we've seen, when we start getting paid by the numbers, we get shit like Justice League.
And
upper lip.
And sidebar, I'm so glad that no one openly booed in the movie theater to this movie. Just heads up.
No, we had our row at Studio Movie Grill. We had the delight of sharing with a full family.
Oh, nice.
And the sweetest Southern elderly African lady.
Oh, that's fantastic.
She was an absolute delight to sit next to. Oh, excuse me, pardon me, as walking past. Hey, if I start snoring, just give me an elbow.
No.
Nah, our movie theater was full of white
I
people.
want to hug you.
Yeah,
but it celebrates every part of the culture. It was amazing.
And that's the thing. Like, I mentioned this to Josh on the way back. Yes, this is a superhero movie. This is technically aimed at everybody. But watching this movie and experiencing it and absorbing all of the references, all of the homages, the commentary of the story, this movie is aimed at me because it's aimed at everybody, but it was not made for me.
Yeah.
It was made for people of African heritage, and it was a privilege that we were invited to share.
Yeah,
right. We were welcomed into their culture for 2 hours.
Yeah,
and that's why I felt welcomed.
My favorite meme of this whole thing, by the way, Josh, was not the Tolkien white guys. It was the, can you imagine the pushback if we created a Scandinavian superhero from a secret country? And the pushback is, yeah, it's called Thor. They made 3 of them.
Oh, the
actually, that's really good.
That was so good.
Going into production, back to production. We're talking everything. The costume designs were amazing.
Oh my god! Like,
it was spectacular.
Rachel pointed out,
not even going to lie, I was legit jealous of some of these people and how spectacular they looked. I was talking to Carrie about this after the movie. I can't remember what tribe it was he specifically was, but the man with the lip plate.
Oh yeah,
the green suit.
The merchant tribe.
Holy shit!
Right.
And the border tribe and their vibranium shield cloaks.
Yes, okay. So there's a separation here, and I'm glad that they did it, but I can't not call them by their animal tribes. So like, yeah, the rhino tribe. I'm so glad they did not call M'Baku man-ape.
Can we talk about speaking of nuance, M'Baku in the comics was a violent, angry black man who wanted Wakanda to engage in human sacrifice.
Who ate people and ate magical gorillas to get his power.
But see, they actually did a throwback to that because he's like, I will feed you to my children.
That he was brilliant. I fucking love M'Baku. Like, and they had him in there just enough for him not to be like obnoxious. Like, also, shout out to being the most realistic person that I can attach to. The middle-aged white guy who's just there and is happy to be along for the ride.
Right? That's literally me.
Representing me in this movie. Just being an older white guy who's just okay with being accepted. Like,
let's face it,
when I
you
get my
have
dinner,
a set of hands.
Also, go figure, when it comes to adapting a problematic character of a very specific race, maybe you should consult people of that race on how to make them better.
Yes, exactly. It's like if you want a well-done woman in your movie, I don't know, maybe having a talented woman write the fucking movie is what you need. Because then if you don't have it, she gets shit on in the fucking movies.
And women were not just in front of the camera in this movie either. The cinematographer was a woman.
Yep.
The wardrobe designer was a woman.
It's a woman, yes.
And let's talk about the wardrobe of our warrior women.
Oh.
The Dora Milaje are so beautiful in this. Their robes were amazing. Oh my god!
Everything was probably like custom made. Nothing was like
Look
cut
at our
out from
general.
something.
Look at our general.
Yes, Okoye.
There was not a lot of skin. Actually, even in the red dress, there was not a lot of skin. There was quite a bit of boob going on in the red dress, but that was obviously because, let's face the type of establishment they're walking into.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and
she wore it like a uniform.
This hair is an abomination.
By the way, and I listened to this a second time. The wig was slightly weighted, so when she threw it, it made an impact. That was
You
great.
heard that audible thunk.
Yeah, when she threw the wig at a person, it made a thump. I'm like, okay, I thought I heard it wrong the first time. When we watched it the second time, I'm like, nope, there was definitely a thump when she threw that wig.
And in the theater, it was Aaron, me, CJ, then Kiara. And Aaron leans over to me and goes, Mommy, her hair just used as a weapon. And I was like, yeah, I heard it.
Yes!
And
That wigs work, child.
looking at their armor, you see the Dora Milaje show up for the first time, and you don't think, look, eye candy. You don't think, look, sexy. You think, you look, holy badasses.
Oh, yeah. You're like,
Right
maybe the Amazonians should take some pointers from that armor.
Oh, they did! And then there was shit on it fucking Justice League!
Yeah. They are majestic and powerful, and they give no fucks.
Oh, yes, they give no fucks. Let's also talk about, because I want to talk about this, because this, for me, was the biggest thing. The sister.
Oh my god!
The smart sister scientist.
I love Shuri
Wakanda.
much. Shuri is the best in this entire.
Shit.
They're Disney
First
princess.
of all, when
Yes,
she
best Disney princess
walks away
ever.
from Mom and, you know, King to be with her middle finger raised behind Mama's back, and Mama goes, Shuri? And she's like, oh, she's got that look on her face like,
Sorry, Mom.
damn it, how did she see me? Honey, mommies have eyes in the back of our head. My son leans over to me and goes, Mommy, she saw her and she didn't move her head. Nope. And then he goes, the sister is sassy. She's a lot like Kia. I was like, oh shit, no.
Shuri does remind me a lot of Kiara. Like, what I can imagine Kiara when she becomes 19. Like, just the sass with the intelligence and, like...
Inventing fist lasers?
Inventing fist lasers and...
Them cars.
Sneakers.
And the what are those mean?
One of those, man.
What are those?
You know, her conversation with Bilbo Baggins when he wakes up and he's like, when was this? When was that? That doesn't happen. No, it happens here. I fixed you.
We're in Kansas.
We're in Kansas.
Oh, great! Another broken white boy for me to repair.
I laughed my ass off with that.
She didn't care that T'Challa was going to be, or is king. Is just like, he's my brother. I'm going to treat him like
brother.
I
love
was
it.
the only one that laughed at the white jokes.
No, I laughed at them too.
And
No,
she's like,
in my movie theater.
she's like, I make your suit, and oh, look at me. Let's pause this fight. Let me get my helmet on.
And then, like the part where they were trying the new suits, and she was like, "Just go ahead and strike this one." No, not that hard.
I invite you to come fix things, and you go trashing everything in my lab. And he's like, "But you
Strike
told
it again.
me to."
What's that for? Were you recording for research purposes?
Delete that footage.
It is the look on her face of, oh, I can't fucking wait to watch you get launched.
Yeah, that shit's going on Wakanda and YouTube now.
Also,
Wakanda tube.
Angela Bassett carrying the room, the weight of the world on her shoulders with hardly a single spoken line.
Yes, when she was on screen, you paid attention to Angela Bassett, and she had like 5 lines during the entire thing. But when she was there, she was boom there.
She was the fucking queen. Also, Queen of Wakanda, white hair.
So think about this. One of her biggest lines. Your father and I will talk about this for years. We know Daddy's dead. Daddy's gone. Done. Not there.
Daddy's got exploded in 2 movies.
The fact that she flat out says, we will talk, shows something extremely deep in their culture. So, yes, he's dead. He's gone. But he is still here. He is still with us.
And
that
is an African way of thinking. And it's the circle of life. I mean, there's people die.
Huge tribal way of thinking.
Yeah. Speaking of that, there was a great metaphor with that. When T'Challa finished his first challenge and was crowned king the first time, he travels to the ancestral plane and he rises up on the plains of Africa.
The magical white suit!
It dressed as a king, as a man, and he faces his father as a king. And yes, he's still, I miss you, I'm not ready for you to go. But the core of himself is still that man. When Killmonger is, as we know now, falsely crowned king,
he's a child.
And he travels, he shows up as a child.
Yes.
I mean, he's not. Yeah, he's not.
He's a child,
Yeah,
not
I
only
get what you
a
mean.
child, but a child getting into mischief.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that in that scene, the first thing that he goes to is where the weapons were held.
But that's where Daddy hid his book, because that's where he grew up. He went to his most primary, basic memory.
Yep.
It's a reflection of their soul, how they experience the ancestral plane.
Yep. So here we have T'Challa with wide open changes, obviously, on the horizon. You see the Panthers on the tree, and you know that this is his path.
Also, going back to the second time him visiting the actual plane, and how during the first time it was sunrise.
It was sunset.
Behind that it was sunset, behind that it was sunrise. And the second time was completely during the day. When he was there, you were wrong. To all of the former Black Panthers, and Bastet was there. So,
he takes on that very we as the Black Panthers, who are supposed to be protecting our people for this reason. This is why we have this wall up around us. This is why we have this protection to protect us. And we didn't protect one of our own. We did the disservice to him. We are the reason he is here.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to fix it. And your mistakes, all of you, literally every single one of the previous Black Panthers, whether part of his current tribe or any of and you could see who was in what tribe based on what colors they were wearing.
Right.
In the astral plane. All of you fucked up.
Yeah.
Also, apparently, some of them were women.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Black Panther is not. The Black Panther is not from a single tribe. It can be from any tribe, and it also is.
Well, that's why when the sister raised her hand during.
I was so happy because in the comics, Shuri becomes a Black Panther.
But she raises her hand and goes, "Can we be done with this? This corset is just painful."
She did look
But there was that moment where Angela Bassett's character looked at her like, "Oh shit, are you really going to fight your brother
I
for
thought
this?"
she could have taken him, by the way. Like
She would have owned his ass.
She would have pulled some shenanigans. Obviously, T'Challa is the better fighter, but she would have pulled some shenanigans. She's a rogue AF, man. Like,
Suri can give 0 Fs just like everybody else. And let's face it, she's obviously got some really strong women around her, so she would have no problem.
And T'Challa needs that. He needs these people around him who see him as brother, as friend, as my douchebag ex, rather than just as the king.
Yeah.
And the great thing is that he recognizes that.
Yeah.
And pulls these people around him.
No, see, she doesn't look at him as douchebag X. She looks at him as, hey, this is the path that I want to take, and you're not willing to accept that right now, so we'll see.
I know, I couldn't resist saying that, but yeah, I know.
That's fair.
And obviously there's still love between them, so...
Well, yeah.
There's still that connection between the two of them.
So, over/under on when when X-Men are finally able to come into the MCU, we get a Storm introduction.
2,900 at this point. 2,900. It's happening.
Whatchamacallit, there was this one scene that I remember when... What's his name? Baku?
M'Baku. M''Baku.
Yeah.
M'Baku.
Bro has a hard enough time with English, much less African.
Okay, so when they're there, they're offering him the fruit of the Black Panther, to give him the powers of the Black Panther.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're offering him the chance to become the Black Panther because technically he could have beaten T'Challa.
Oversized pomegranate juice, yes.
Well, no, he lost to T'Challa, but they're like, this is the only guy that we have a chance, because they didn't think T'Challa was alive. This is the only man that we can think of that has the strength and the power to top Killmonger.
He thinks over it for like a second. And he's just like, I need to show you something.
But that's his kid. Like that's the great thing I love about how they evolved Manape's character into his own entity. You can no longer really even associate him with Manape because he is 100% his own character, and that was summed up in that scene. It's like I can take this, I can get the power that I want, or I can do the right fucking thing, and he did the right fucking thing.
Yeah. The thing is that M'Baku is an honorable man. He's not a bad guy. When he challenged T'Challa, he legitimately was doing so for what he felt was the good of his people and the good of Wakanda, even though they're not technically even the same country.
Yep.
Well, the only problem he had with Shuri is that she's so young and doesn't respect tradition. He didn't care that she's a girl.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
it was never
technology is based from her too. He was a little peeved at that.
Well, it wasn't that, but yeah, it's because she was young and yeah, like Carrie said, not tradition.
You're
but
putting so much weight onto this child.
Yeah, it was never this child. It was never a female child. It was this child. It was never mentioned as girl or anything like that because obviously there are strong ass women everywhere around this fucking time.
Like his problem with Shuri is that she was young and that she was irreverent, and it was portrayed more as he was like basically he was afraid of Wakanda going too far to the modern side and leaving their roots behind. And so he was doing what he felt was necessary. He wasn't being an antagonist, he was trying to do the right thing, and he shows that by coming through in the end.
Well, he also has to deal with the fact that, and what was it? No Black Panther or no Wakandan king has been to this area for X amount of years.
Yeah, it's I can't apologize for my dad, but, here I am.
Yeah, exactly. I love T'Challa's response to that.
Don't blame me for the problems that my forefathers gave us because I am not them.
Well, he didn't go there willingly. He got thrown off and was found in the snow by them.
But he could have just been like, all right, fine, I'm here, I have my body back, I'm leaving. He didn't.
Yeah.
He still respected
Not to mention, they didn't have to save him.
Yeah, exactly.
And he didn't have to
I
keep
couldn't
his
left him
sister
there.
safe either.
Well,
But he
he did spare his life, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
for life.
the whole favor
But again, like he's an honorable man, right? So a lesser man could have been like, "Hey, here's the guy that beat me in combat. If I let him die here, then I can take over."
Yep.
But he didn't. He did have a choice. As M'Baku sees it, he didn't. But in reality, he absolutely did. He just happened to make the right one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Oh man.
Acceptance.
Making good
understanding,
choices.
tolerance.
Who would have thought that?
I love when he shows up in that final fight.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh.
Okay, so actually, I think we will take a break here before we get into the finale of the of what we're talking about here. So yeah, because I mean we're going to be heading into the finale and everything like that. I kind of want to talk about just a little bit more of that.
You mean the credits that no one in my movie theater stuck around for?
Ours either. What the hell is wrong with you people?
And here's my kids once again going, "Why are you leaving? Are you people dumb?"
Like even when the animated part was going on, everyone left. No one stuck around for the animated credits, which are the best. Well, not in this case, but nearly always the best part.
They are one of the best parts of the end of a movie.
It was the best part of Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Can we just say the Stan Lee cameo?
CJ's shaking his head here.
That cameo was great.
My heart so
I'm just gonna take those over here for safekeeping.
Oh, the simulations though are so good. Before I know we're ramping up to a break, but the car in the Korea scene and the simulated spaceship
style for you.
Also, shout out to Okoye on the car, spear in hand, dress billowing in the wind. That was one of my favorite shots in the entire movie. Actually, no, it was my favorite shot.
And when the car, I like the part with the car, I can't remember the other two that were in the other car. But when the car gets blasted and she comes down the hill, just sitting on the remains of a chair, go-kart style, going down the hill.
Oh man, Okoye spearing the hood and surfing down it, but just the shot of her standing on it and the camera actually freezes for a second and you get to see this warrior woman in her full glory.
Right.
Yes.
Shout out to the simulation team.
But my favorite scene has to be her jumping off the balcony inside the club and the skirt behind her with the spear up in hand, and she just catches the air and lands right on top of her target. That was hot.
The Korea speakeasy has to be my favorite for sure.
Yes.
The rhino scene, which we're going to talk about.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we're gonna take our break because we're gonna have to.
Because otherwise, we're not gonna stop gushing.
Right. All right. So
Never stop gushing. Don't stop
That's what she said.
gushing.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Greatly appreciate it. For podcast listeners, right about now, you're going to be hearing some ads from our sponsors. Check them out. We love our sponsors. Everybody, we're gonna have a little bit of a musical interlude here from the one, the only Jonathan Young, and his cover of, because I can't think of a better movie that could represent this, from Pocahontas, his cover of Savages. Stay tuned.
What can you expect from those little heathens? Their whole disgusting race is like a curse. Their skins are yellow red, they're only clean dead. They're vermin, as I said, and worse. Savages, barely even human. Savages, drive them from our shore. They're not like you and me, which means they must be evil. We must sound the drums of war. Savages, dirty red-skin devils. Now we sound the drums of war. this is what we feared. The pale face is a demon. The only thing they feel at all is greed. Beneath that milky hide, there's emptiness inside. I wonder if they even bleed. Believe in human. Killers at the core, very different from us, which means they can't be trusted. They must sound the drums of war. First we deal with this one, then we sound the drums of war. Let's go kill a few men. Now it's up to human. Believe in human. Now we sound the drums. You disrespect me, little man. Don't you delegate or deny. You're in my world now, not your world. And I've got friends on the other side. I've got friends on the other side. Sit down at my table, put your mind at ease. If you like it, will enable me to do anything I please. I can read your future, change around some too. I'll look deep into your heart and soul, make your wildest dreams come true. I got voodoo, I got things I even tried. Friends on the other side. Take a little trip into your future with me. Now you young man from across the sea, you come from two long lines of royalty. Well, your lifestyle's high, but your funds are low. You need to marry a little honey whose daddy got dough. Mom and dad cut you off, now I'm playboy. Now y'all gotta get hitched, but hitching ties you down. You just wanna be free, I'll place the place. But freedom takes green. It's the green, it's the green, it's the green you'll need. And when I look into your future, it's the green that I see. Oh, you little man, I won't waste my time. You've been pushed around all your life. You've been pushed around by your mother, by your sister, and your brother. And if you was married, you'd be pushed around by your wife. But in your future, the you that I see is exactly the man you always wanted to be. Shake my hand. Come on, boys. Won't you shake a poor sinner's hand? Transformation Central. Transformation Central. Transformation Central. Can you feel it? You're changing, you're changing, you're changing, alright. I hope you're satisfied. But if you're not, don't blame me. You can blame my friends on the other side.
There we go.
I love how low that song is. The bass
Yes.
on that is amazing.
It's so good. There's a reason why it is one of his top downloaded, listened to songs on Spotify. Oh man! So we're back, you guys. We're back. Really quick, I want to thank the one and only Taco Lady for supporting us on Patreon. You can do that over at patreon.com/geekio.
Thank you, Taco Lady.
Thank you, Taco Lady. You're so cute.
It's a cat.
Yeah, I have to say that because you're my wife. You're so cute.
Yeah.
Wait, we're not married yet.
You're not married yet, boy. You don't get there yet.
Yet.
You got
It's always like, you're not married yet. I tell you when you're married. I don't know why I'm doing this voice. I don't know what this voice is.
I'm not sure what that is.
I don't know.
I don't know if
It's
it's
all fuzzy.
dad voice, because I could dad voice you if you want.
Hang on. There we go.
What the? Sure.
I should have worn this in the first act when I fucked up so much.
See, look at me. My hat's cute. You can't judge me for it.
Let's go! Alright.
Let's go! Oh, man. So welcome back, friends. We're going to do a little bit more gushing. Request that the voice.
You never stop the gushing.
That voice. Oh, in the Dale, what's your vows to be read in your quote unquote dad voice, Dale?
That wasn't my dad voice. That was just being dumb. If you want me to be dumb,
Carrie's favorite thing on Dale is having him sing things. No, mine is making Dale incredibly uncomfortable. That is how. That is
I don't know how to speak to girls. What do you want from me?
It's vows, dude. You just read them. You gotta do it in your dad voice.
Last time I checked, I've been to a couple of weddings. Last one, my dad's married again, and I don't remember them having like palm cards at the wedding. Just FYI.
A lot of weddings where the couple writes their own vows, they usually will have like a little index card or thing.
Yeah, because call it a hunch. I don't think yours and Dia's wedding is going to be the traditional one. So,
but also, it was a stand-up comedy routine, so there is that. So I suppose there was no need to have palm cards. There's us groomsmen off to the side going, best men off to the side going. Yes, and.
So back on to Black Panther. My nickname for myself was Almost, and if this is one where we wrote them down, Raul's nickname would have been Rhino licking his mommy.
Vibranium-plated battle rhinos.
It's so good.
Oh my god! The intricacies of how they use vibranium in this show, it is not in this movie. It is not just here's a magical MacGuffin that sometimes we use for things. No, like it is obvious that this vibranium is so ingrained in their culture, and they use it so well, and the tech is so rad.
Yeah. Oh, what was it? It wasn't just the rhinos. It was
their clothes.
So it was only 2 tribes that were really fighting it was 3 at the end, but it was it was the Royal Guard, right?
Yeah, the Dora Milaje.
And that's a tribe unto itself, right?
No, they are a military force.
Yeah, they are dedicated strictly to the crown. Like that, they're the crown's guard, as proven when Killmonger takes over and the Dora Milaje are like, we're paladins, you guys. We have our vows and we stick to those vows.
Yeah, and then you had the other one with the cloaks.
The border tribe.
Border tribe.
Yeah, that were actually, we kind of agree with this new.
Yeah, everybody else was just kind of like, I mean, he's the king now, I suppose. Like even M'Baku's like, yeah, was it an unfair trial by combat? Well, no, he just lost. Like, technically, it was mom and sister and girlfriend who were just like, yep, fuck tradition.
Yeah, well,
that's right.
And then when it was only when T'Challa came back and is like, I'm alive, I didn't yield, the challenge isn't over, and Killmonger said, fuck the challenge, is when they were all like, yeah, no, you're not the king, because you're not following what you're supposed to be following.
Traditions, right.
And the law.
Also, like that entire last fight scene was so well done because the Dora Milaje went before like everything started going apeshit with the I just do it naturally now. Thanks, Josh.
You're welcome.
I did it before I met you. Who am I joking? Who am I kidding?
Next step, Felix.
Yes, right. So before everything tilted sideways, the Dora Milaje were using only the blunt ends of their sticks against the border tribe. They did not want to kill anybody. Then, the battle rhinos came out and they're like, oh, shit. We have to actually...
About that.
No, let's talk about, yes, the women were the ones that were like, no, we're not doing this because we want to. We're doing this because we have to. Because it's the right thing to do. The rhinos are called out. And let's talk about the, oh, hi, Mom! Lick!
Yeah. Like, that was like I said, my title was almost Giant Rhino licking his mommy. Like...
Yeah. And, like, at the end, you're like, don't do the stupid decision and try and go out fighting like a badass. The situation is you don't have a way out of this.
Yeah, right. It's like, all right, buddy, you're not a bad person. We understand what you're going through. Don't do the stupid thing. Just lay down your arms.
Oh man, though, Okoye's delivery of that line, would you strike me down, my love, for Wakanda without question?
Yes.
Right.
And he's like,
I love you, but I'll fuck you up.
She does not get to be the general of the Dora Milaje by fucking around.
I'm also glad that they changed the Dora Milaje around just to basically be the Crown's Guard in this, because like in the comics they're the Crown's Guard, yes, but they're also kind of like the bridal training grounds for the king. Like the general.
That's a little weird.
Pretty much like the king will choose a Dora Milaje to become his queen, and
So
it's not like an arranged marriage kind of thing, and it's mostly just because again we want to have a strong woman as the queen. So like, who's the strongest woman in the entire country? It's the Dora Milaje. But they're kind of treated, at least until Storm comes around, as kind of a bridal breeding ground.
Yeah.
Then Storm came
Let's
around,
also
and
take into
T'Challa's
account,
like,
though-
"Ooh, pretty goddess lady. I want to marry this pretty goddess lady." And he marries the pretty goddess lady.
He marries the pretty goddess lady. And
that would be a great offshoot when it had Black Panther and Storm.
Yeah, I think if this movie would have taken place, if this movie came out this time next year, now that Fox is going through and everything like that, they probably could have had Storm in there, and that's how you introduce the X people into the MCU. But, I mean, I kind of like the fact that they're not doing that as well. Because, I mean, that marriage itself was kind of problematic because they're like, we have these two strong black people, put them together, marry there, move over there.
Ah,
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was very like, what are we going to do with these two strong black people? We can't have them separate. Let's put them together because that makes sense.
I mean, I could kind of see it as a diplomatic marriage with Wakanda reaching out ties to the rest of the world, but that kind of invalidates the T'Challa Shuri storyline that we just got.
Yeah, and like, it was... I mean, she's a queen, but it was not like they wrote it very well. Like, they wrote it that these two people fell in love under no pretense that they were a king and queen of two different countries. Like, so these two people fell in love and got married eventually. And it's like, oh wait, now we rule two kingdoms. So it was never like a diplomatic marriage. But it was also like I said though. At the time, they're like, we have these two strong black characters, and they obviously need to be together because we don't really want interracial relationships.
Hmm.
And God forbid there be more than one powerful black woman in all of the Marvel universe.
Yeah, now that's changed, thankfully. Like, that's a lot different now. We have a future traveling black woman Captain America. We have two Black Panthers, one of which is Shuri. We have, obviously Storm. We have a bunch of X people who are strong black women. Like, it's gotten a lot better. But this was back in the 80s where there's like, having a black woman and a white man be together, or a white man and a black man and a white woman be together. Yeah, we don't.
That's still frowned upon in some of those nations. Not gonna lie.
Also, guess what, you guys?
What, you guys?
I'm just saying.
There's a movie that's headlined by all black people with a ton of really powerful women at the forefront, and the world isn't burning down!
Yes, right!
And it's not okay, I'm going to say this. It's not a gangster movie.
Yes, exactly. It is not your
Yeah, I know I fucked up the intro, but that's seriously a good point. It's not that type of movie portraying those type of people. And I think Harry said it earlier. Like Charles was talking about the last time when we did Bright, was those people were characteristics less than characters, whereas in this movie they're fully developed characters and they stand on their own and don't need those stereotypes to be dependent on.
Exactly. But then again, I mean, like Carrie said earlier as well, I don't know if you want to have well-written and well-scripted, well-directed African Americans. I don't know. Maybe you should go to the source and not fucking.
And they didn't shy away from when Killmonger's like, where was Wakanda when all this shit was going on?
Yeah,
like we hid, and because that's what we do.
So when we went to see Black Panther, it was a very diverse crowd. I mean, Josh noticed it right off the bat. I noticed it as well. There were people of all ages, all genders, lots of people of color there. And when Killmonger said, "Bury me in the ocean with my ancestors who jumped from the ships because they knew that bondage was better, or that death was better than bondage," there were audible gasps and murmurs in the theater.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm distracted by Automod and chat.
So, Carrie, the audible gasp, when we did our first round, because we went on Friday night, because this was one of those that if something was going to happen at the theater, I wanted to preview what was going on, because we do have younger children. And though they realize that Black Panther is not a real character, it is a comic book, it is fictitious, I wanted to make sure that everything in there was appropriate. Yeah, sometimes I'm that mom.
Also, we wanted a date night away from.
We had a date night, so it was dual purpose, and we both understood and agreed that.
Don't judge us. Parenting is tough.
Sometimes we do weird things. We went and saw Winter Soldier without even seeing any of it. Sure, let's go. This happened to have, because it does deal with some touchy subjects.
Yes.
So I wanted to be able to front load the fact that I was going to have to answer some questions for my kids. Possibly. Because we know my kids read more than a lot of kids. The audible gasp that was there was exactly that. It was audible.
Yeah.
And there was black, white, Asian, Hispanic, old, young, probably like 16, 17 young. Because it was, 10 o'clock at night.
Mm.
So we went back on Saturday at a matinee showing with both kids. That line came out, and Aaron, our 7-year-old, turns around and goes, "They really jumped from ships? He'd rather..." And he just stopped there, because he's whispering in my ear. Thank God he's got tubes in his ears now, because that could have been real loud.
Oh, could you imagine?
And I was like, yes. He goes, I can see where they wouldn't want to be put into slavery. From a 7-year-old. So, fast forward a couple hours into the evening. We had to have the slavery talk. We've talked about it before. Because, obviously, they just learned about MLK in school. And they do something every year for MLK. Shortened Martin Luther King.
Yes.
You never know. There might be someone listening that goes, MLK, who the fuck's that?
International.
Both kids are bouncing ideas back and forth, and they're all legitimate, honest ideas. Kiara comes out with, I understand it now. They probably could have fixed him and all the problems that were going around, but they probably would have locked him up for all the bad things that he'd already done.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, trying to overthrow a country.
You're not wrong. Aaron pipes up with, but slaves didn't do anything wrong. They just existed as people.
And then
but they weren't people, they were slaves, they were property. So here's a 7 and 8-year-old having this back and forth conversation over their dinner.
Right.
That most adults can't fathom or realize that this is the problem that we're having with society as a whole. And this is stemming because of a fictitious movie.
I mean, we had this conversation on Wonder Woman too, and it sparked a lot of conversations around then about strong women in movies, and there was conversations that were bouncing back and forth about that. And I said this in the Discord not to diswarrant the conversation in question, but this definitely did spark the conversation about African people in today's culture, and by association, and I don't mean to be sensitive or disrespectful, but in particular African American people, because, well, there isn't really that many African Australian people, I'm just going to be blunt, about how, you know, African American people's place in current society. It's definitely a thought-provoking movie.
Yeah, I mean, and also, like, I did have the talk, I'm like, you know, after that whole thing, because part of my lineage is African slaves as well. So, like, I had to have a talk about, you know, it's not even just people that look like them on the screen, you know, and I told the kids, you come from a
My family was slaves. The Irish side of my family was Irish slaves.
I looked at them like, you have a proud side, you have a proud, you know, African slave lineage in there, and that's something you can have pride on. But we don't look like that. You don't have to.
No.
And that's something that can, you know, you can have as a focal point and as a, you know, as a relation point to this, because I know sometimes it's hard, especially for the younger kids, to understand that.
And when you're frankly as white as our family is,
we all look white, just FYI. No, as in.
Oh no, except Raoul, but you know he's Raoul. He's our token.
I've been working on my farmer's tan. I've been working on my tan.
Totes.
But yeah, it's all about having that conversation, and like with Wonder Woman, it's a tough conversation to have, but it's an important conversation to have. Yeah. Right, regardless of whether you think there are some parents out there, and I was talking at work about this last night, where it's just like, you know, is it about, you know, it's easy to blow this off and say it's a movie, it's entertainment, blah blah blah, which is a good, that's not a high intelligent thing to worry about, but yes, it is, you know, a movie, or you can think of it as an art piece where, with art, you know, it's thought-provoking and definitely encourages that conversation.
And it's profoundly thought-provoking, especially how we live in this world. Let's face it, worldwide, there's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of racism. There's a lot of things being said that probably shouldn't, that we know shouldn't, but there's still people that'll say them. And this touched on them in the 1982 is the book?
1984?
Is it 84? Sorry.
Yeah.
Big Brother?
Big Brother.
Yeah,
Thank you.
1984.
It's been a long time since I've read, high school level books. I deal with
It's been a while since 1984 too.
Yeah, 1984 was a great book.
I was one. There you go. I dated myself, everybody. But it put it into a satirical but realistic view. And it did give us ways that, as a whole, if somebody would just be like, hey, look at that. T'Challa's statement, instead of building walls, fools build walls. Fools do this. Real leaders do that. You want to fix things, do it this way. If somebody would take into consideration that maybe these aren't just the words of some screenwriter, but somebody that's actually genuinely given thought to everything going on, it could be formed into fixing problems as opposed to just continually creating them.
Or referencing actual people and actual events going on in the world.
Yep.
Because that's the thing, is that message, when he was speaking to the United Nations, basically.
Yeah.
Yep.
That it was time that we stopped looking at everything that technically separated us and acting on the fact that we are all the same tribe is pretty much my philosophy on the one quote-unquote easy way to fix a shitload of the problems in the world. We are all human beings. We are all brothers and sisters of the same species.
We all bleed the same damn color.
I love the tie-in to Captain America: Civil War. Yeah. And I know this movie stemmed from that, but the interweaving elements seemed very appropriate, and that movie came out in
2016,
which was, I thought it was 2015, but I don't know where I got that from. But when that movie came out, it was a very political time in the world as well, and coming this far to where we are now in 2018, it just seems like we're still having that same conversation. It's an important conversation to have, and it's important to have check marks. And as a person who has been on the internet to catalog everything that has happened between Captain America: Civil War coming out and today being the 23rd of February, it's very interesting to see the two movies, and in retrospect, whilst I was lukewarm on Captain America: Civil War, this is actually going to make me want to go back and see that movie to see what I think of it, knowing now what I didn't know back then.
That's why retrospectives upon movies and stuff like that are important, especially once you start building on the universe a little bit more. Going back and maybe having a different light, being in a different mindset, going back and watching good movies that are good and not garbage like you thought they were.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have my reasons for being. I still gave Captain America: Civil War an 8 or something like that. It was a good movie. It was very overcrowded.
I'm dragging on you about Spider-Man.
To be honest, Captain America: Civil War was an Avengers movie. Just to be perfectly honest.
Oh yeah,
and that was my main problem with both of those movies. To be completely honest, more so Spider-Man: Homecoming than Captain America: Civil War. But I think not as tarnished as I am now, but as jaded as I am now about those particular events that have happened between that time of that time frame, it'd be very interesting to go back and see if I can watch Captain America: Civil War. If it's available here, if it's not, I'll rent it or something. It'll have to be up for rental by now.
That's fucking. I was gonna say it's on Netflix, and then I realized no, it's not in there.
Nope. I think it's available for rent. At Pro HBO? No, just kidding. It's not turning into that ad.
Next Geek IO couch is a marathon of the MCU.
Oh dear God!
Can we skip over Spider-Man: Homecoming, please?
No, it is a good movie. You shut your mouth.
Hey, you know what's an even better movie than Spider-Man: Homecoming is Black Panther.
The Room. Oh, Black Panther. Yeah, right.
Like, I love Spider-Man: Homecoming, but I think I like Black Panther more.
Oh, absolutely.
That's way better than Spider-Man: Homecoming. There's not a question. That was not a question. But that's all I have to say.
I just wanted to make sure and specify that I was not shitting on Spider-Man: Homecoming. I was just.
It is Dale being incorrect, just like Dale was incorrect about Thor Ragnarok. It's okay. It's all right. You are entitled to your incorrect opinions. It's okay.
Now, I know you're listening to this. Humor me. Did you like Spider-Man: Homecoming?
I think you
Insert response here.
All right. So, should we go ahead and Tito this up?
Let's throw some trannies in the Outback.
Yes, indeed. For those who don't know, this is the Trannies in the Outback, which is our obligatory 1 to 10 scale that you can do 0.5s on. Well, 0 to 10 scale. 0.5 to 10 scale that you can do 0.5s on, but you have to justify the bottom or the top half of the tranny in the Outback. Ladies first. Let's go with Rita.
This is a reference that's been carrying on for the last 6 years.
This is the first I've heard of it.
What?
So, for my long and short of it, because obviously, strong women characters, amazing messages throughout the whole movie. Entertained my children. Son more than daughter, because she was just fucking squirrely. Smart ass female character in The Princess, because, oh my god, I fear for my future. But at the same token, my daughter can turn into that kind of scientist. I'm perfectly okay with it. This is going to get, because there were a couple little flaws, not major ones, not even ones that I really think I need to bring up or discuss, because it's just not worth it. Obviously, there was the one audio thing, but it was like, it could have been any number of things, so,
Right.
It's getting a 9.5 from me.
All right.
And I don't care if it takes top or bottom, because, let's face it, either way, there was some really good-looking people in that movie, and I would take the top or bottom of either of them.
Carrie.
Always, first criteria, was I entertained? Obviously. Women treated well? Again, obviously. One thing I was really hoping when Black Panther was first announced is that, black people would be in the forefront and they wouldn't try and shoehorn a bunch of awkward white people in for no reason. We only had 2. African culture treated with reverence and love and respect. Extremely relevant message. And the cultural importance of this movie, not only calling out a message that we all need to hear right now, all of us for different reasons, but we all need to hear it. And to see pictures of groups of little black girls dressed up as the Dora Milaje, little black boys dressed up as Black Panther, another group of people, just like how I felt when I saw Wonder Woman. This whole group of people who can finally look at a superhero movie and see themselves on screen as not a caricature.
Right.
It gets a 10.
All right. Boom. Yeah, I'll go next. Because, I don't know, why not?
Sorry, I just love that idea. Like, oh, go next because romp through time.
Because I feel like it.
Yeah, basically.
It's my
show, and he feels like it.
Yeah, essentially. So, like, I went through the second time watching this, and I went through and tried to fine-tooth comb something to nitpick about. And the only thing I came back to nitpick about was that I could not watch more of anything in Wakanda for right now. I, on a deep and spiritual level, felt so much going in this movie, and can honestly say, for a superhero movie, this movie is so important and can go down with movies that, you know, like Malcolm X, even, that focus on, you know, a drastically underappreciated and underrepresented group. And to top it all off, it is just a sick as hell superhero movie. This is my favorite Marvel movie. And one of my favorite movies that I've ever seen. I break my rules on Gamer Geeks every so often to Raoul's chagrin, and I give things like 11s and shit like that. I can't do that here because the Tito rating is reverent and is important, and it's getting a 12 from me.
Oh, you can't. It's my rating scale, so...
He has to. He only gives out 110, and he already gave it to Wonder Woman. No, that was last year.
Exactly.
I'm thinking it's still 2017. Don't mind me.
Yeah, right. Too bad.
No, obviously it's an easy 10. Yeah, there's nothing I can say about it that is negative. Speaking of people who are probably going to say things negative, Dale, your turn.
Hi. Okay, let me tell you a story. I love the fact that it's like, love the fact that I say, let's tell a story, and CJ immediately laughs. Like, it's going to be a funny romp through time. Ziggy Raiders that says, to be fair, Black Panther is proper good and is by far the best Marvel movie. I don't think it's the best Marvel movie, but back to my story. Now, I don't know. I think a few people are aware of this, but in 2011, I graduated high school. I know I'm young. Insert jokes here. And then I was wondering what to do with myself. I had a kind of revelation. Like, I'm kind of like, I'm going to do something before I decide to hunker down and then kind of set up the next phase of my kind of life. I had a post high school life crisis. Either A, I can go on a massive expensive holiday that I've been saving for years, or I can spend that money on helping somebody else. And I chose the latter. I went on a 6-month volunteer placement in Vanuatu. For those people who don't know, Vanuatu is a group of islands in the South Pacific. They're very, very remote. Their technology is not great. They're in the middle of the ocean. So I went volunteering there for 6 months at a elementary school. This movie hit me very personally because as a person who has been, and I don't mean to make light of this, but I'm going to because that's what I do, being the being that white person in that environment is very impactful. And the Vanuatuan culture is very similar to that of African culture. They have very similar cultures. And learning everything about their culture, being welcomed into their homes, they invited this person who they had never met prior to this into their houses. There was me and there was another person. We did this as a pair. To learn about that culture was probably the greatest thing I have done in my life so far. It was a remote community, and to help someone for that extended period of time was probably the greatest thing I've done in my life. So much self-fulfillment, and it was excellent. This movie I had a very similar experience to. To a lesser extent. Granted, I didn't go to a remote island, but I went to the movie theater. I had low to medium expectations from rumblings I've been hearing about this movie, particularly here locally. And that's a whole nother separate podcast that I'm willing to do, because I want to rant about it for an hour and a half about that, of why this movie got low ratings in Australia. But that's neither here nor there. I sat down for this over 2-hour movie and went on this cultural experience. It was fantastic to go, oh, I didn't know that, or this is very similar to this other culture that I've grown to know and appreciate. This movie gets a 10, hands down. I'm not gonna. I would love to give this movie a 900, but a 10 will do. And
10 will do ya.
A 10 will do ya. But I hope that this sets the president, or the president. You never know.
No, I mean, I wish this would impact the president.
Right.
No, hell, just T'Challa for president.
Right? 2020, it's coming up. But to go on another cultural adventure that I didn't think that I would ever go on a second cultural adventure. Yes, it's a 2-hour movie, and yes, there is more to learn. But just the simple fact of learning this culture is amazing to me, and I can't wait to dig into it more, and I hope there's more. And I hope this sets things up for more movies like this in the mainstream in the future. I just burped, pardon me.
Awesome.
That's story time with Dale.
No, that's good. That's good.
Raul, what you got?
All right. I can't get too deep into movies because, I mean, I missed some references here, there. Did I enjoy the movie? Yes. Did I understand I understood most of the tones, most of the messages that it was trying to portray. Strong women, intelligent women, honor, growth. You had the leader Mumbak come out, and you think he's going to be like a villain, like he's just going to come out and what's that?
Drink.
Mumbaku or
drink.
I know it's
Hey,
spelled.
he got it that time.
It's Mubaku or Mumbaku.
And there we go again. M'Baku. There's no vowel there, just
Hmm.
I like the method case. Oh, here we go again.
Okay, all right. So he actually had more growth for a character than other characters that have a whole season.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, like in a TV series, there's some characters that have no growth from episode 1 to episode 26.
Or no development. They're the same cardboard cutout that they started out as.
Yeah.
I'm totally following this conversation.
Okay, but yeah, I can't speak bad about this movie. Because one, it sparks conversation, as Rachel was saying, with her kids. It shows it with Killmonger. It shows that he's telling them that where were you guys when we had it rough? Not when we have it rough. We still have it rough, and it's just the extreme that he's going to try and not just level the playing field, but take it over. I'm gonna have to give it a 10.
Boom. Odd that Rachel is the low one so far, but we have one more. Josh, what you got?
I love this movie. I mean, yeah, I joke about the fact that it made boatloads of money on its opening weekend, and it's one of my movies for the Winter Movie Smackdown. But
You still paid $900 for it, so you haven't made that much.
It's not one of my boss fights. Quit changing the number.
I mean, I can change it.
Only works on the mana pool.
Nope, it's pretty much just your thing at this point, I think. Dale's young, Raul can't talk, Rachel's mean, I'm stupid, and you just have numbers that fluctuate.
What am I?
You're Carrie.
The smart one.
I was really looking forward to this movie, and the fact that there are horrible, hateful people out there who were trying to sabotage its rating on a website.
Oh my god.
Shows you just how important it is to be a thing that exists in this year.
Sorry for the headphone listeners, me doing that long F noise, but again, I could rant about an hour and a half about how Australians rated this movie very low, but we won't go there.
And it really, like I mentioned a little previously, the core message of this movie about how it is past time that we stopped behaving as separate entities and started embracing the fact that we are all one tribe, one species, is one of the cornerstones of my soul, basically. I look at all of the anger and the hatred and the violence that goes on in the world motivated by what they assume to be very good reasons, but again, it's only very good reasons based on the life that they had led up until that point, much like Killmonger. His extremism was motivated by his past, and there are, people out there and there are cultures out there that have had, decades to hundreds of years of feeling that they are justified and right in their decisions that are ultimately dumb. There is no reason to hate someone based on the way their skin pigment manifests, based on geological location. There is no reason to hate someone based upon the faith they choose to subscribe to, on who they choose to love or don't love. There is so much stupid, pointless walls that we build for ourselves like fools. When we're all human beings, we are all Homo sapien. We all have half of our chromosomes from one side of our family, half of our chromosomes from the other side of the family. We're not different at all. We are all one tribe of people on this planet, and so many things would start going so much better for us if we just embraced that fact and embraced each other. And that aside, back to my usual metrics of, was I entertained? This movie was phenomenal. It did not feel like 2 hours at all. The pacing was smooth as butter. The music was fantastic, and that's saying that as someone who generally doesn't care much for that style of music. In terms of, the Kendrick Lamars and what have you. But it worked, and it resonated. And the traditional African music was gorgeous. The scenery, the costuming, everything about this movie just stunning. You know, we've been singing its praises for 2 hours, pretty much, and could probably go for a little while longer.
Yeah.
The only minor little nitpick I have about this movie is that it needed more M'Baku.
He'll be back. I'm
He is
sure.
confirmed for Infinity War.
What?
Oh yeah, we're gonna get a whole lot of Wakanda in Infinity War.
Oh, but no more
Oh,
Black
Infinity
Panthers
War.
because they burnt all the plants.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a seed.
We'll see what happens there. I mean, this was a plant that supposedly came from a goddess, so...
Yeah, and there's probably seeds in
With
the
the plant, in the beginning, when he first went to the astral plane, they pulled out the entire plant. Where is that plant?
Yeah, I'm sure this
There was one plant in her
hand.
hand that she pulled out of the ground, roots and all, very carefully.
I did notice that.
So,
Yes, she took the flower from it, but
Where's the rest of the plant?
where's the rest of the plant? There's my thought. You're welcome.
and that's probably not going to be an issue. I agree. But yeah, just... Everything about this movie was so damn good. And... Like, it just made me want more. You know, I would love to be able to go to Wakanda.
Or even the outreach centers.
Right.
You know, just
Oh. Yeah, that,
so good.
yeah, that scene. When you told me you were going to bring me to California, I thought you were going to bring me to like Disney World or something.
Can we
Right.
please get a bonus scene of Princess Sherry at Disney World, please?
Right?
The DVD extra.
But yeah, just when a movie so successfully and so beautifully presents a culture that myself, as a relatively normal, average white guy, feels envious, you have done something spectacular. And so yeah, I'm in the 10 boat as well. I wish
Nailed
you
it!
could grade it higher. It's so good.
Nailed it!
So good.
I had your 10 and the average is already labeled out because I'm like, I know Josh is gonna give it a 10.
See,
and I'm happy
that's with me being Mr. Positive when it comes to stuff like this. Is I'm relatively easy to please. You throw a giant robot on the screen and I'm giddy like a little kid.
Oh, by the way, Josh, I don't know if you had the same. I definitely know you.
Ready Player One.
No, we had the trailer for Pacific Rim 2.
I didn't get a Pacific Rim 2 trailer, but
I had those.
It was so good. I thought of you the whole time. I'm like, I hope Josh gets this
I
trailer.
have a really bad feeling about Ready Player One, you guys. I have a really bad feeling about Ready Player
And
One.
let's just point out the fact that it's based out of Columbus, Ohio.
I was gonna say it's not just because it's based out of Columbus, Ohio.
I do
See,
love
I
when
was
they
gonna go there, I
paint it in such a terrible light, though. It's like Columbus, Ohio, this desolate urban wasteland. It's like, yeah, that's about right.
That's about right.
Yeah.
I spent 5 years there. I can say that. Yep, that's about right.
They must have filmed on location. This looks like shit.
Right.
I know we got Pacific Rim Uprising. We got Infinity War.
That one seems. We didn't get an Infinity War trailer.
We got Tomb Raider, which that looks like hot garbage.
Yeah.
At the theater that I went to, the Alamo Draft House, hashtag not sponsored, but will be sponsored if you contact us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would love to have a sponsorship with the Alamo Draft House.
Studio movie girl looking at you.
What's up?
We had excuse me.
Oof.
Raul's illness is starting to kick back in. Jazz must have gotten better.
Jazz must
Right?
have woken up.
It's a
Butcher his
trade-off.
intro.
When I get sick, Jazz is okay. When Jazz gets sick,
Oh, I don't.
Yin and
I'm
yang.
nervous that Jazz hearing the intro. Anyway.
so
That'd be
at
so-
the very beginning they have, please turn off your phones. You will be asked once, and then if they continue to complain about you, you get removed from the theater without a refund. Well, they just had a single shot of Chadwick Boseman. Just like silent, just like. And then his sister comes up, Sherry. It's like, what are you doing? They know.
You just called her Sherry.
I heard that too, but
I love Chadwick Bossman because he is the boss man. He's the king.
To be fair, it looks like he's got a lozenge or something, so that's a little bit.
By the way, while we're talking about what happened before the movie, I've been going to the movie theaters for this show for like 5 years now, and it's been the same first commercial in the pre-show. That commercial wasn't there.
Oh
So I'm fully expected to do the music that comes on with that ad, like the
tradition.
The royalty free da 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 Forest Gardens Pharmacy. Like I'm not ready to do the dance that I do, and I didn't get to do it.
Well, it's like when we go to a Regal Cinema and Rachel Menudos has a different necklace on.
Yeah, no, I was ready to do the dance. I'm like, damn it. Oh. Ad for Pillow Talk. What's this doing here?
That's okay. You can do the dance with us, Dale.
Right. Speaking of dancing, let's go ahead and wrap this baby up. You can
by the way, quick, one little note.
Yep.
Did anyone still in the career speakeasy scene? I roared myself laughing for no reason at the there's you've got an entourage there with you. Are you dropping a list? Yeah, I'll send you a
SoundCloud link. Get the SoundCloud link.
As a person who follows the Billboard Hot 100 and sees week after week SoundCloud trap rap hit the charts, I roared myself laughing.
That's why I love Claw's goofiness, and I'm sad we'll never see it.
I just love that he had this, almost priceless artifact tucked in his dick.
Yep.
I was gonna get a, nice box, but
let's have some money.
One of my favorite minor scenes from that movie was the mask scene. Like, you tell me that makes vibranium too. Nah, I'm just feeling it.
That's a call out to Killmonger's comic book outfit.
Yeah, I figured it was. It was just, it was so simple, but it's like, it gives you such a nice slice of his character right there.
Yep. All right, so you can listen to us live Thursdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, Fridays at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time at twitch.tv/GeekIO Show. If you want to get a hold of us, you can do so. GeekIOShow@gmail.com. Put Black Panther in the subject line for this. Twitter, Facebook, both /GeekIO Show. You can even give us a call and leave us a voicemail. 727-489-4335. That is 727-489-GEEK. We also now have a Discord. You can join in the fun and festivities even when we are not on the air at geek-io.net/discord. And also remember that you can support this show and everything that we do on the Geek IO network by heading over to patreon.com/geekio. That'll get you a private room in the Slack channel, master feed of all the shows, and so much more. Hey, Josh.
Hey, CJ.
What we got going on this week, man?
Next week on the Geek IO Show, from the Studios, President Nick Shaw and lead actor Osric Chow.
Yeah.
So we actually struck something up with those guys. That's fantastic.
We did. Absolutely. We don't have. These guys reached out to me.
Now it's time for.
These guys reached out to me via geekioshow@gmail.com and said, "Hey, we'd love to come on." Mentioned Anime Otaku Show, but we don't really have guests on them. But we got them on here. I'm so happy. And now I'm going to do this because this is more fun to do this way because Dale freaks out less when I put a spin on it. I'm going to spin the effect dial and land on here, and we're going to press this button.
Now it's time for the Geek IO Winter Movie Smackdown Update.
Dale in an empty auditorium.
He recorded it in a bathroom.
I just literally spun my effects wheel, and that's what it landed.
No, high school locker room.
Yeah. We got 2 weeks left, y'all. We got 2 weeks left.
SmackDown will never end.
No, because movies still get pulled like right before they're released. By the way, that says a lot for the war with Grandpa.
Did you pay $26 for? I forgot about that.
I don't know why.
You were blocking. It was right before. I think it was.
It was the last movie, though.
Before Black Panther. No,
it was the last movie because we go chronologically.
Oh, that's right.
So I think it was just me dicking around. No. It was because it was like one of you assholes had like $25. I'm like, I'm just gonna buy it to get this over with because we've been doing it for 3 hours already.
By the way, Carrie's not an asshole, and yes, it was Carrie with $25. I remember now.
If you are trying to outbid me in that show, you are an asshole.
Apparently.
I'm incredibly competitive for this thing for somebody who has never won one. I have never won this game.
You've never won this game.
I have never won this game. Not once. Not a single time have I have never won this game.
3 times.
So then, what's coming for you? You have a perfect season.
Exactly.
I'm coming for you this season, by the way.
So we have ending run, Peter Rabbit, 50 Shades Freed, and the 15-17 to Yuma, Paris. Black Panther entering the second week. Opening this week, Annihilation, which is Jeff's wild card, and Every Day, which is sure to be a rip-roaring, comic-filled jump through Nicholas Sparks' psyche and weird Philip K. When Nicholas Sparks writes a Philip K. Dick novel, we get Every Day, and because the war with Grandpa was pulled 2 days before it fucking launches.
Mm-hmm. I loved where that sentence went there.
Grandpa's a little bit at war with himself. He needs a few more days to talk to Grandma about that whole thing.
Yeah, it's been thrown into TBD loophole, but very excited for someone to kick back up because I've missed playing.
So we have Jeff still in first place, where he will may his reign be long and terrible, with $34.0 million. Carrie is in second place with an impressive inaugural showing at $26.5 million. Budlong is in third with $23.8 million. Raul is in fourth with $18.7. Josh kicking up a little bit to $17.2 million because of Black Panther, and I am in my proper place with $16 million.
I really want to see if you have. I swear you've won one of these.
I've never won. Not one. There was 1 year that I was super close because Transformers made a shit ton of money and nobody else wanted it, so I got it for like $9. So like that year, I came so close to winning, and
I know there's a doc somewhere.
So if there was a giant vibranium mech in this movie,
don't tease me.
That would have had Josh leaving stains in the chair. What are you talking about?
I
thought the rhino was mechanical. Like, I wonder if that's good enough for Josh.
The rhinos were great, don't get me wrong. Would have been better if some armored monkeys had shown up, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, especially considering vibranium is a sound-based metal. You give me a sound-based giant robot, and yeah, there would have been some stains.
CJ, I just looked at the facts. You've lost twice, and now I'm gonna lose 3 times.
Dude, I told you, I've never won this, and I have been in last place more times than I can count. And that's not all of them, by the way. That's not all of them, because remember, Budlong has won this like 6 times or some bullshit. Like
this is all of them. This is all of them.
Because Budlong was reigning supreme until you decided to do your weird voodoo magic.
Right? I didn't do anything. Right? American done all the work for me.
My prediction is Josh is going to get into 4th place before the end of this, and other than that, this is where we're ending. Maybe 3rd, depending. Well, no, there's already a drop off of Black Panther, so I'm guessing 4th place for Josh.
Man, I'm going back through the doc now. This is so good.
We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks after this is off. So, yeah.
All right,
I'll get that updated. Get that out.
Do you want to know what happened this week on the?
Yeah, what happened this week on the Geek I Network?
Oh, Generic Live Show takes a trip back to 1951 and discovers the greatest man of all time, Dick
Buttons.
Yeah. Dick Button!
On the
Dick Buttons.
Oh yeah.
Dick Buttons.
On the mana pool. Oh boy. The party enjoyed
I'm sorry!
Okay, alright. We enjoyed
On the mana pool this week, CJ, I'm sorry!
Yeah, that's all I should have. Like in big old text. But we enjoyed some entertainment at the end.
Yes.
That's right, we did.
We grabbed some food.
Yeah.
Frank
We
and
drank some
Calabras
food.
went over to the Coliseum.
Some...
In the evening, Kai and Amy go to the observatory, and Kai does something interesting.
I'm sorry!
I'm not. He's an asshole.
What was it? You're welcome and sorry. You're welcome and sorry.
Oh my god, I'm not looking forward to getting emails.
You're going to.
yeah.
It's starting. It's going to start this week. And then,
oh, go ahead, Carrie.
I was going to say, and then next week, I think, is when we answer the first email.
Yes.
Yes.
So, throughout the show, we in the chat room have been adding titles to our amazing BioCow-created geekio.showbot.tv, and this is the part where Carrie embarrasses herself by reading our stupid shenanigans.
We don't have a lot this episode, just because we were probably all too busy
Being serious.
gushing. So there's I remember the pre-show text. Episode 221, Rant and Review of Bright.
I kind of like that a lot.
I turned up to the wrong show, and then the cops showed up. I like how those two kind of go together. You're welcome and sorry. Dale had it all wrong, 2017. A random beep. You got your beep in my movie. F you, Tony Stark. Delete that footage. Never stop gushing. And vibranium-plated battle rhinos. And tucked in his dick.
You should have put "and" there. Just vibranium battle rhinos tucked in his dick.
I kind of like you're welcome and sorry. It ties around at the end.
Oh man, this was a great show, you guys.
And it wasn't okay. By the way, I effed up the episode number. It's actually episode 233. I effed it up when I said that too.
I read it off of this off of the Twitch channel, so I think I said it at the beginning of the show.
No, because
God damn it!
Because I took it off of the whatchamacallit,
Dale.
You have failed this city.
Again, Dale. That was my fault.
Oh,
Episode 221, right? Which would be weird to write because it would be like the Geek I show, episode 233, episode 221, review of Rant.
In which we rant review Black Panther.
Which we rant review Black Panther.
Yay!
It's a bright idea.
oh, well, you're welcome and sorry got picked up there.
Welcome and sorry.
All right. So rip the Warwick Grandpa and rip the rest of the show. We'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Because it's shonen bullshit.
You know what? No. You get water buffalo.
Hi, my name is Water Buffalo, and I hope you've enjoyed this Geek I Media Network production. Copyright 2018, you see how that works?
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.